Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our podcast. This is all about contemporary music and building festivals. This is episode one. My name is Ludwig Chavanis. I'm based here in New Zealand. And I'm joined here by my co host, Mr. Justin Bartlett. How's it going, Justin? He's coming from the States. So we're both pianists and we're interested in learning really how to build diverse communities through music and art. And through this podcast, we're going to introduce you to an array of different artists that are doing really interesting and wonderful things in the world of music, and we'll see if we can pick their brains to see if we can take some of their experience to help you build and expand your own musical community. So, without further ado, we'd like to introduce our first guest. He's a pianist, he's a composer, he's a teacher, he's an improviser. His name is Mr. John-Paul Muir. We're going to call him JP. And he's also the senior program manager for the Bloomsbury Festival in the UK. So, JP, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I know it's quite late in the evening over in the UK, so we won't hold you up too long. But we're here and we're currently looking at this at your website. This is the Bloomsbury website. And one of the things that I was talking of Justin that immediately strikes us, it's a festival full of color. So many different communities that are coming together to share, their stories, their skills, and their knowledge. Am I close?
Absolutely. Bloomsbury Festival is a really interesting festival, I think, and I may be biased, but I think it's a very unique one because of the uniqueness of Bloomsbury as a place. So it's kind of a festival that's about the place of Bloomsbury, the square mile in the middle of London that has the British Museum, the British Library, some of these really big institutions, the University College London, University of London, these big kind of institutions. Um, but there's a really diverse community that live there as well and work there. And so yeah, it's a super interesting part of London, and the festival really tries to celebrate all of that.
Yeah. I think one of the big things that I love about it is that it does seem it's bringing in all walks of life. So if you were to think about a mission or a purpose for this festival, because as you know, there are thousands of festivals that are going on at the moment, and they all represent different things. Is there any one particular kind of mission or purpose you feel that Bloomsbury is trying to promote or represent?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for us in the Bloomsbury Festival, it's all about the place and the people in that place. And so we try to amplify the creativity that happens in Bloomsbury, whether that's the scientists in the laboratories doing cutting edge research, whether it's contemporary dancers at the place, which is where they train, or whether it's an exhibition, a gallery, or musicians. It's really about amplifying the creativity that's going on. And in my role as a programmer, rather than having a pot of money and just buying in shows like some big festivals work, I'm much more of a matchmaker actually. So which is really interesting creatively for me because I'm very much about getting matching artists and creatives with each other and with venues and kind of trying to get some new projects going and things like that. So yeah, it's a really interesting festival, and we, in terms of the programming and what we kind of focus on, is a couple of different things. Emerging artists. So we run competitions across theatre, writing, screenwriting, and music, and also visual arts. And the winners of those competitions appear in the festival. We give them support. We give them some mentorship. So there's a big emerging artists kind of thread there, as well as providing quirky, weird opportunities for those maybe more mid-career artists. Opportunities to do a show or a collaboration that they might not otherwise get the opportunity to do. I think we can do that and harness some of the really iconic and interesting spaces within Bloomsbury to give them the opportunity to do that. So yeah, it's about place, it's about Bloomsbury, it's about some of those priorities, but that all comes together in 10 days of madness every October, and it's wonderful.
That's so interesting to hear how you sort of are a matchmaker for different artists in different disciplines, people working in different mediums. Could you tell us about one of your more unlikely pairings that you felt was a success?
Yeah, well, I mean, one actually springs to mind. and this is with a pianist who appeared on our emerging artist, our lunchtime concert series that I programmed with emerging artists some years ago, and and she was still living in Bloomsbury and wanting to do another project. So we met up, and she's a pianist who's very interested in dance, and was doing a PhD in movement and narrative and how that can um, how that interacts and intersects with forming an interpretation of music. And so anyway, she had this idea. She was in her program that year was doing Chopin's B minor sonata, and she had this idea to collaborate with dancers. And I said, well, look, you should talk to these. I'll put you in touch with these people at the place, this contemporary dance school, and they might have some students that are interested in that project and the choreographer and things. So I kind of match made those two people, and she ended up collaborating with a Belgian choreographer and four dancers, and they collaboratively made this choreography along with Chopin's B minor sonata, the whole thing, and performed it in the festival. And I thought that was a great success. It was and that I thought that was a good example of that kind of collaboration coming to life.
I love the idea of unlikely. That's a great question, Justin. Like this unlikely pairings, because it does make for interesting viewing, and it's a topic of conversation, right? And one of the
Absolutely.
big things that we're looking to continue studying as pianists, as musicians, is this idea of building community, right? And so, what can teachers do or artists do that are out in the community that are wanting to build their own circle? I like this idea of of pairing things up, being a matchmaker. Can you take any of these ideas and could they be applied? Let's say, for instance, for someone that's wanting to continue expanding their own studio. What are some ideas that they could use to make to like take their studio and they're expanding the community to a new level?
I think it's a really good question, and full disclosure, I personally don't have a private music, piano studio that's kind of doing some of the things that I'm suggesting. However, I do have some ideas that might work from my work, with the festival, and um, I think it goes back to collaboration, and it goes back to your community, and about telling the stories that need to be told within the community, and about reaching out and across borders of genre and discipline. And I mean, this is something we do in the festival. We've commissioned composers to write new works that highlight the stories of, for example, the Bangladeshi community in the northeast of Bloomsbury that's traditionally not so engaged with the arts and things like that. Amazing stories that come forth when you really search them out, and it's a way of bringing different parts of the community together in a way that wouldn't otherwise happen, perhaps. So, I mean, to a music teacher and the community that they're in, I guess more specifically the creative community, I'm sure there are opportunities there to reach out to the other creative organizations within your area, when it comes to collaboration, whether it's dancers or whether it's even something like um, commissioning some new pieces to be played that then some of your so that your students could then play them, and could involve even local businesses to get on board as sponsors and that kind of thing. That can a lot of different parts of the community that you might not expect might be really happy to kind of get on board. So I think that kind of emphasis on the people that are there, or in your community already, and the stories that you can harness, because as musicians we're storytellers, and I think the earlier we can place that emphasis with our students as well on the act of the storytelling and making it really relatable for those people in the community, those students in the community, is the better.
Mm. Another thing that really interests me is that you are doing a lot of arranging and administrative work for this festival, but you're also a part of the team. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that experience of working with a team to build this community and sort of delegating work, or just the whole logistics of how you, in your practice, actually go about, you know, uh, getting all these people aligned Um,
Mm.
and if you have any nuggets of wisdom from that experience for people looking to do something similar.
Yeah, I think, in the Bloomsbury Festival, we've got a very small core team that is quite needs to be quite quick-footed, really. And then that when we come to the production sort of side of things in September, and then the festival itself in October, the team expands with marketing interns come on board, and the production team arrives and starts working to start to realize some of these ideas. So in terms of the people and the way the team works, I think the core, having the vision at the beginning is really important, and having a core group of a few people that really understand the mission and what you want, the vision, I guess, of the festival is really, really important. And in our experience, I've been with the festival, this is my eighth time now. In my experience, sort of having some trusted people alongside you that then stick around, you're able to have there alongside with you for maybe a couple of years, 2 or 3 years even, um, really makes a really big difference. Um, so I think having one or two people that are really close collaborators is very, very important in making some of these things happen. And then when you get closer to doing the hard work on the ground, whatever that event might be, or that festival, or whatever you're doing there, then you can get in the help, the many hands. But I think, so in terms of the way the team works, I think it's very collaborative. My boss, the director of the festival, um, the style of direction, the style of the way she brings us together as a team, it's very, very collaborative. It's not very hierarchical. We're always bouncing ideas off each other, and the very first festival director that I worked with when I came on board, one of the things I loved particularly about at that time, when I was really green and had never done any of this kind of work before, she made me feel like it was fine to just give something a go. And didn't matter if it didn't work out. It was always, she framed it as a learning experience, but you got to give this a go. And she made me sort of feel like it was okay to do that. And that created a really nurturing environment in which we were, as a team, able to grow and learn from trying this. That didn't work out, and this works out, and that kind of thing.
Can you expect? It's great, right? I especially love this idea of the trial and error. Because with any event, even if you've been doing it 8 times, you're always going to come across strange barriers and walls that perhaps you didn't foresee. And so, would you mind expanding on that, if you don't mind, just sharing in your experience some things that perhaps didn't quite go the way that you'd thought? You're like, what? I did not expect that to happen. Um, and things that you might want to improve as years go on with these festivals, because it's such a large machine, and there are so many different moving parts. But thankfully, you do have a team that you can work with. But maybe you can just expand on that, JP, if you have a moment.
Yeah, the pitfalls. There have been many, many learning experiences, many
Don't
pitfalls.
get too emotional.
Um, I think, and well, in the Bloomsbury Festival's growth that I've seen over the last 7, 8 years, it's grown from a festival that was in existence for a while, but then took a break and reinvented itself in a new environment. Um, you know. A lot of different methods needed to be tried. So in terms of fundraising, different things were tried. In terms of the way we program, different things were tried. In terms of the team, sometimes team members were hired that didn't work out so well. Um, I think the going back to without sort of laboring the point, that previous point of the trial and error is I have to say is really, really important, and but framing that as a learning experience. I think I guess one personal thing that's sort of I found that might be of interest was, I in the early years I did try to do a bit of performing as well with the festival in the festival itself, and for anyone who's tried to juggle the organizer and creative hat simultaneously, and I'm sure there are some of you listening who may have, could relate to this experience. I personally just find it very, very stressful indeed to juggle those two things. So that was a learning experience I had where, if I was in that organizing mind space, which is very much quite hectic, to be honest. In my mind, it's always putting out fires here, solving this problem here, from one to the next. I find that I can't perform very well or go or access that creative headspace in a way that makes it enjoyable for me. So that was one piece of learning that I took out of it. That my involvement with the festival was better as an organizer rather than a performer. So I guess that's maybe a word of caution for those people out there. I mean, some people might relish that in a way that I don't, but that was definitely some learning for me.
Well, I'll tell you what. What's the if there are, because there are so many things happening in this festival, and if there's any one event or a couple of events that you're very much looking forward to, and that you're excited for the public to come and see and witness, is there anything that pops in mind right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm at the wonderful stage of preparation now where our program for this year is all finalized. Our brochure's been published. So the programming work is, and that initial phase has all come to a close for the summer. So that's really exciting. And one of the events that I'm most looking forward to actually is a really interesting one. It's one I've never uh, encountered before, actually, which is classical piano meets stand-up comedy. And there's a young pianist, uh, a young graduate who has already piloted this show that mixes stand-up comedy with classical piano, and to great success. And she's bringing that to the festival in a new and expanded version that's not been done before. So I'm really looking forward to that. Her name's Aida Rarlo. And yeah, so it's kind of like a typical stand-up show, but it's all about what it's like to become, trying to become a successful classical pianist, and some of the, maybe some of the funnier moments on the journey that I'm sure many of us can relate to, and that's but told in that stand-up context, and then some kind of musical snippets in there just to kind of punctuate things, which I think this will be a great show. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
That's so neat. Okay, Justin and I might need to come over to the UK just especially for that then. Hey, before we close up, Justin, is there anything that you wanted to throw out JP's way?
Oh no, thank you so much.
Is
It
it?
was such a pleasure talking with you.
Oh,
Absolutely.
it's
And
a pleasure to be involved. Thanks for asking.
all the best for the festival, huh? It's going to be huge. And for all our listeners out there, do check out. Where can they find more about the festival there, JP?
The best place to go will be our website, which is bloomsburyfestival.org.uk, and you'll see the program online there, and so all the listings. And there's there's a little bit of I think there's a small amount of digital content there, which will be accessible globally. A couple of talks, for example, that are around a project we've got this year that is about kind of updating the Bloomsbury set, the famous group of kind of creatives, literary creatives, into today's kind of Bloomsbury creatives. That there's a couple of discussions that are happening on Zoom, for example. I think that anyone can kind of hook into, but most of it is live and based in London. But yeah, check out the website, check out the events, and everything's able to be booked at this point. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, there you have it, viewers and listeners. This has been John-Paul Muir. Do check out the Bloomsbury Festival website and check out JP's website because he is a fascinating and very creative pianist and improviser. Until next time, thanks again, JP. Have a wonderful evening.
Cheers, you too.